Okay, hi. So I live in Washington State, Clark County, and I got a letter saying I was called to jury duty. First time ever being called to jury duty. So I called one night and they said that my group was supposed to report the next day, so I go there. And there's like maybe 35 of us in a huge building. And we're all sitting like 6 feet apart we have to wear masks because at that time, this was just a few weeks ago, everyone still had to wear masks. So anyway, so we went into this other room, and there was a judge sitting like on this stand, and then in front of him on two sides or at two different tables, there was the prosecuting attorney and the defense attorney. And the defense attorney was a team of attorneys. It was one guy and then two women, but the prosecuting attorney was just one lady. And so they explained what the case was. Actually, they didn't really give that many details, but they said that it was going to be a criminal case and not a civil case. I'm explaining all of this, and I want to record it because the whole affair was one of the strangest experiences I've ever had in my whole life, and I think it would be beneficial to record it and to share it with everybody, or whoever wants to see it, just because it was so crazy. But so during the jury selection process, like I said, there were all like upper 30s there, and they asked specific people to come up and stand in front of everybody and hear a question from the prosecuting attorney or the defense attorney team. And some of the things that I thought was interesting, mostly interesting, was one of the first people that got up was this lady, probably in her 40s or 50s. She didn't look old, but she, anyway, she said she looked very, very disturbed. And she said that she was not feeling very comfortable, and she thought she should be excused because she's feeling really anxious. And then she said because her son was being charged, was on trial for first-degree murder. And everyone was like looking at each other like, oh my goodness, this poor lady. And one of the attorneys was saying, and so you feel like you would not be able to be unbiased in this situation. And she said, well, I don't know, I just can't think straight. And they're like, okay, well, thank you, you can sit down. And two kind of younger girls got up, one at a time, and because they asked if anyone else had something that would make them ineligible to be on the jury. And two different girls stood up, and they were kind of younger, but they both said that their religion forbade them from prosecuting people or judging people or something, and it was against their religion. So I don't remember what follow-up questions the attorneys had or the judge had, but they were allowed to sit down. Another interesting guy or person was an older guy, and he said that he has very short-term memory loss, or some kind of problem with short-term memory and he is required to take a lot of notes to remember things. And he got up, they asked him some questions, he would answer them, and then he sat down, and they would ask other people questions, mostly would you be able to be on a jury and be able to look at things fairly and unbiased. And so a bunch of people got up and had to answer specific questions like that. But this old guy, he got up two other times for some, I don't know, the prosecuting attorney kept asking him to stand up, And anyway, it's pretty interesting. Eventually, he said everyone knows his story. Like, he's telling that he got hit in the head when he was in the army or something, and so he had problems, you know, remembering things, like I said. But oh, and oh my goodness, this one lady stood up and she said, all right. So the prosecuting attorney asked everyone what they thought, if anyone had any problems with the justice system in the United States. And this one lady stood up and she's like, and she goes to the podium and they're like, okay, what's your problem? And she says, I don't think they punish people enough. It's like, they let everybody off and they don't punish people enough. We need more death penalties. We need more people going to prison. And everyone's like, okay, lady, okay, you know, and obviously she wasn't chosen in the end. There were a bunch of things, and if I would have done this video sooner, you know, I would have remembered everything. But I do remember they asked me, they said, okay, juror or candidate or whatever I was, I think I was number 13 or 20 or something. They're like, so if the victim didn't show up to court, would that influence your opinion of them and make it so you could not be unbiased to their situation? And I said, aren't they required to show up? And they're like, well, can you think of any reason why they wouldn't show up? And I said, if they were, you know, in the hospital or, you know, I mean, I don't really remember exactly what I said, but they're like, okay, that makes sense. And I went and sat down, and they kept asking, like, general questions, and they would ask people to stand up and answer them. But eventually, they called out the names of everybody that they had selected to be on the jury. Okay, so I got selected, and I met at the courthouse the next day. So we got there and we had a little briefing at the courthouse for Clark County. They had transformed many of the courtrooms into like waiting areas for the juries, and we were kind of briefed. Actually, I don't remember if we were briefed before or not, but anyway, we got to, we had maybe an hour of waiting around, and the court started maybe half an hour after they said it was going to start at like 8:30, and so we got there, and the courtroom was set up like you would expect a courtroom to be. Like, I was surprised because it looked just like it does on court TV shows and stuff like that. And anyway, so the prosecuting attorney got up at first, and she started doing her, like, explaining the case. So basically, it was a robbery of a store on December 31st, 2019 at an a.m. p.m. And the perpetrator had stolen, like gotten behind the counter, and while the the store attendant, and there was no one else in the store because it was like 2 a.m. The store attendant was not there, so he came in and he went around the corner and grabbed a pack of cigarettes. And while he was doing that, the lady came back and she told him that he shouldn't do this. This is what the story we were told by the prosecuting attorney. And so he pushed her. That was the claim, that he pushed the clerk, this lady, and she had like a cut or a scrape or something, some kind of mark on her neck, and and he ran off. And she was saying that that they don't have much evidence, or they have limited evidence, and the defense attorneys are going to try to make you feel like, or make us feel like, that they don't have any kind of proof or anything. And we were like, okay. And and then the defense attorney, he made his claim or whatever. And since it was like a few weeks ago, I don't remember exactly the sequence of events, but basically what happened like several times was they would get someone to come on the stand, and then the one of the attorneys would have some kind of objection, and the judge would say, okay, well, we need to have a discussion without the jury. And so all of us would be led by the bailiff to the other courtroom where we would be while we were waiting for them to do their discussions. And we were talking a little bit, and we were just amazed that all of this was set up from one pack of cigarettes, and we were like, this is crazy, anyway. Like, all of us were just kind of dumbfounded, and anyway, so we waited a little bit. We came back, and the first person that they had on the stand was the 911 operator, and they played the recording of when the AM/PM lady called 911, and like it was very authentic. It wasn't, I didn't have any kind of suspicion that it was made up or contrived or anything. But she was like out of breath, and she was obviously, panicked and distressed about what had just happened. And then she said that she described him as a white male, and he had multicolored camo on, and white jeans. And anyway, so I don't remember if the defense attorney had any questions other than, actually, I don't really remember the specifics, but I think the prosecuting attorney was the only one that answered the questions and wanted just to play the thing. And then they, she got down, and they had one of the police officers, the one person that, they had one police officer, and he said that he received the call, and the lady said that the person who did the crime left the store and said what direction he went, and the one police officer that was there, or that responded, and I think he was with someone else. Well, anyway, he said that he went and he found the guy that matched the description, and so it just matched the description. And the defense attorney, when he was asking his questions, he was like, so, did you see any marks on the victim's neck, like that she had claimed? And man, I wish I would have done this video right after the event, because I could have remembered all of the details. But okay, so anyway, so that police officer said his story, and then they had the boss of the lady who was working at the store, and they asked her if she saw the marks on the victim's neck, and she said that she didn't. She didn't notice anything. And the significance of that was to be burglary, like they had to show, or they had to prove that he took by force or threat of violence the merchandise. Like if he just had gone in there and taking it, it would have been like shoplifting or something. And so they couldn't they wanted him to be on a burglary charge. So the lady's boss didn't say that she had any kind of marks on her neck, and there was no picture evidence of any marks. The only person that said they had it was the first police officer that responded, and the only evidence that he had was a picture of a pack of cigarettes. And I was just thinking, why didn't you have a picture of the guy holding the cigarettes, or some other kind of some kind of picture evidence or something? I was just very confused that why you would just have a picture of a pack of cigarettes. Like, that doesn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense to me that you would only have a picture of that. Like, there's nothing to tie that picture with the event, the date, anything. And so we had several breaks because there was like a lot of objections by both attorneys, and so we would have to go out and they would all talk about it. And they at one point we came back and they were interviewing the other police officer, and he said that he had video recorded the video of the lady, and with like the marks on her neck, but he didn't have it because he said that the phone that that was issued by for the police for evidence type stuff, that it did an update and it wiped all the memory off. And we were like, okay, so we just have the cops' word that they saw some mark on the lady's neck. Okay, so the second cop was saying that his phone, like the video evidence of the woman being like having a mark on her neck, or evidence that she was pushed violently or something. So he couldn't produce that, and so far they only have one picture. They have the police. They have the policeman's testimony that they had caught. Oh yeah. So the other thing is they caught. So when the first police officer caught the guy who they were accusing, he was just out on the streets. He said that the guy confessed to being the one that did it, but like there's no. I was just confused. There was no recording of it, of any kind of confession. There was no, like, they have video cameras. They could just easily. I don't know why you wouldn't record it. So they said he confessed to doing it, and then so after that police officer had given his testimony and said that his phone had lost all the footage, and this was a year and a half after, like, the court case was starting a year and a half after after the event happened. And so it's like, in my mind, it was a little, it was a little, I was thinking, okay, yeah, so they don't have much evidence, or like they don't have much proof, linking this guy to, it's just basically all it was so far was just the word of the police officers. And the other the other kind of crazy thing was, they said that they brought the guy back to the AMPM, which is just a convenience, or a gas station convenience store thing, right? So they said that they brought him back, and they had him under high light, and the lady said, "Oh yeah, that's the guy," but we don't have any recording of that. We're just taking the police officer's word for it that she confirmed to them that it was the guy. And then the defense attorney when he was asking questions, he said, "Okay, so was this from the light from the car, or what? Like, how far away was he?" And the cop couldn't remember, which is totally believable, since it was a year and a half after. Although they did have they have police reports and stuff, so he referred to that, but he couldn't really remember the specifics of it. Okay, so they had after the first cop, or police officer, sorry, after the first police officer told about, finding the guy, and then him saying that he was the one that took the cigarettes, and I did it. The second police officer, the one that went to the store to talk to the lady, he said that he had a police issued phone, and he recorded the employee that at the store, and so he recorded the scratches on her neck, and that was supposed to show that it was done with violent intent. So he said he had video evidence of it, but then they didn't show it because he said that the phone updated, had an automated update that night, and so when he went to retrieve the video, it was corrupted and lost. And I was like, doesn't the police department have an IT department, and don't they have access to all these files? So that seemed kind of odd. And then when he said, he also said that he shined, and I think this was the police officer who said oh wait, scratch that. Okay, so no. So going back, okay, so after he said that he couldn't retrieve the video, he was saying that he went to the convenience store several times, at least 2 to 3 times, to try to retrieve the video file from the surveillance footage, which would have clearly shown, according to the management, what the perpetrator looked like, what had happened, where he went, but the police officer said that he every time he would go and inquire, they wouldn't give him the footage, and so he never got it. And I was like, this is just a long list of items that I thought was strange, but I was thinking, okay, well, maybe it was a year and a half ago, and maybe since it was just a pack of cigarettes, that they wouldn't pursue this. They would go in and say, oh, our IT person isn't here that can do it, and then they just didn't come back. And I can see that, but I can see that happening, but the police officer was saying that he went back several times, and that the store would not help him or give him what he wanted. And I was like, the police department is requesting surveillance footage. Why wouldn't they want to give it? It would help in the case against the perpetrator, and maybe they could retrieve some damages or something. But so he didn't. Eventually, they're like, okay, well, that's just another thing that the defense attorney said. Well, there's really no evidence to show that the lady had, marks on her neck, or that she was pushed, or anything, or that other than the police officer's testimony that the guy confessed, that there was no other evidence. Okay, so after the police officers gave their testimony, we went to have another break. Actually, no, it was for lunch. And so when we got back, we went in the courtroom, and the guy that was charged with the burglary, he was sitting on the witness stand, and his hands were not visible, and the prosecuting attorney started asking him questions, and the first thing I realized was that they didn't have him raise his right hand to testify that he would, tell the truth, or that he wouldn't lie. And I thought that was odd, but the guy said that he never confessed to anything, and that he didn't know why the police officers would say that he confessed when he didn't. And so the defense attorney, he didn't really have any other questions, because basically the guy was just saying that he didn't do it. And so after all of this, the prosecuting attorney had her final words, and she even emphasized that they didn't have much evidence to show, and they lacked video evidence and footage and written testimony or a signed confession or something. But she was saying that the evidence, there's no, like, he was caught in this near the scene. He had a pack of cigarettes, and he had a kind of camo jacket. It was not really, I wouldn't really consider it a multicolored camo jacket, because it was grays, black and grays. Anyway, so she had her, her last statement, and then to the jury, and then the defense attorney stood up, and he basically was just re-emphasizing that the lack of evidence, and that they didn't, and they didn't even have the victim come or appear in court. And so after he was done, we all went, the jury went back to our waiting room. And this was very interesting to me, because during the whole trial, and what?
This is windy.
It's okay. So during the whole trial, dang it, what was I going to say?
You found it very interesting that during the whole trial.
Found it very interesting. What was I going to say? Cool. All right. So we got back. Okay. So we got back as a jury, and we could start deliberating and discussing things. And one of the first things that I thought was interesting was there was one of the more outspoken people. He was like, he's guilty, he says, first thing, I don't need any kind of evidence or anything, or he says, all I need is the cop's testimony, and I can just see that the guy was guilty, just visually. And during the whole trial, they kept emphasizing that, we had to be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt, beyond any reasonable doubt. And so there were those of us in the jury that were like, they don't have any video evidence. The guy's never confessed, or he didn't. He's claiming he's innocent. The clothes don't really match. All we have to go by are the police officer's word. That's like everything. And like, I was really shocked. Like, all of these were way beyond reason. These were all very reasonable doubts. They had many reasonable doubts. And so there were those of us, I would say probably like 4 or 5 of us, who were like, yeah, he's probably guilty, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's one pack of cigarettes. Like, they brought all of us jurors for one pack of cigarettes. Like, we were like even the ones that thought he was guilty, were like, this is insane that it was one pack of cigarettes and all this money and time and effort for this one event, when I'm sure there's like worse things that happen. But like, I don't want to go too much into what happened in the deliberation room, but a bunch of people, like I would say, 2/3 of the jurors, like they were very disturbed with the thought of saying not guilty, because their main motivation was that if they said not guilty, then that was equivalent to saying that the cops were lying, that they were outright lying, and that they, said he can.
And
Action. And I don't even care if it's windy or if there's like disturbance. I mean, this is just a record, okay? Okay, everyone, don't worry about the video quality, all right, or the sound quality. This is just my record for anyone who's interested in what happened. Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So many people were like, they did not want to say not guilty, because to them that was calling the police a liar. And even some of them said, if we say something like that, or if we even think that, or if people think that, then society is going to fall apart. And like, I was pretty adamant that, maybe he was guilty, and the police just didn't take that much effort to gather evidence for like one pack of cigarettes. And I was totally okay with that kind of theory, right? But the fact that the police like didn't have all this stuff that they should have gotten, like the picture evidence, and then the only evidence they did give us, other than the guy's clothing, was a picture of a pack of cigarettes. Like, we're supposed to convict a guy.
Anyone could have taken that photo. At any time.
I know, I can take...
Yesterday.
Yeah, I can take a picture of a pack of cigarettes, and then I can go up to the police and say, okay, my neighbor stole this pack of cigarettes from me. Look, here's evidence. This is evidence that my neighbor stole this pack of cigarettes, because look, I got a picture of it. It's like... Anyway, it's just so ridiculous. But eventually, those of us, there were probably like I said, 4 or 5 of us that just were like adamant that we couldn't say he was guilty, because all of these things that were very, like, in my opinion, very reasonable doubts of his guilt. And like, anyway, I had so many like little theories in my head, like, are they intentionally trying to make a horrible case of it? Is this kind of like a social experiment to see if they could convict somebody on no evidence? Just kind of like, okay, let's get 2 cops in here, and then let's just have the cops say that the guy confessed, and then let's have a horrible case. And anyway, it was like, I don't think that would happen or anything, but I was like, why would they present such a horrible case with just, and the victim didn't even show up. It was just, it was just crazy. Like, even the people who wanted to say guilty, we were all kind of like flabbergasted that this whole thing was happening. But anyway, so we decided to, we came up unanimous not guilty, which basically doesn't say the cops are lying. It just means that they didn't present enough evidence, and it contradicted with what happened. So it was kind of ridiculous. So we all went in there, and there was some guy who obviously wanted to be the spokesman. So like, everyone's like, oh, sure, if you want to be. He's like, oh, I'll be the spokesman if you're okay with that, and we're like, sure, we don't care, and he's probably like, yes. Anyway, so the bailiff took our statement, and then he reads it out, like the formal thing, like, we, the jury, find it not guilty. And I thought that was going to be it. But then the judge had each one of us, he asked every single one of us individually, juror number 1, was this a unanimous decision, and was this your decision? And so, everyone, and the guy that I said at the very first said, this is the guy, I know he's guilty, I can just see it. That's all I need to see is just him. He's just guilty. And why would the cops lie about this? He didn't even need to see any evidence at all. Anyway, so when they asked him, was this a unanimous decision and was this your decision? Like, I bet all of us were like, oh, please say yes and yes, because we don't want to do this over again. And he said yes, and all that. And so it finally was done, and we were like walking out back to the jury room or whatever. We had to go back for a little bit before we were excused. And I asked the guy, I said, oh, it must, I was just joking. I wasn't like being mean, because we were all kind of like really friendly with each other, which I thought was pretty cool, because, even though there was a lot of arguing, everyone was very polite, and no one was like getting angry at anyone, so it was kind of nice. But anyway, so I was like, oh man, that must have really hurt to say yes on that second part. He says, oh, it was horrible. But anyway, he was kind of like this, like construction worker type, kind of like a tougher, rough kind of guy. Like, he was very nice, he was very vocal. Anyway, so we all go back to the jury room, and they excuse us after a minute, but they say, okay, well, the judge is going to come in, and the prosecuting attorney and the defense attorneys are going to come in, and they'll answer all of your questions. And I was like, holy cow, that's crazy. So they came in, and there were only like 5 of us that stayed, but like, it was crazy. The judge, he was like, oh, I wish I could explain it, and I probably should take more time to explain this, but he was saying, yeah, he's like, did anyone notice that we didn't swear the guy in, the guy that they were accusing? We didn't make him swear, and we were like, yeah, why didn't you do that? And we were all like, that was really odd. He said, well, his hands, he's like, you didn't see his hands, could you, the whole time? And we're like, oh no, I guess we couldn't. And he's like, that was because they were handcuffed the whole trial. And we're like, huh. And he said that they did it because they didn't want to influence our decision, like to make it look like he was a criminal, And I was like, huh, that's interesting that you would have to keep him handcuffed. But then the judge was saying that he had heard that he was kind of a tough person to keep, and that he's been in jail or the prison or whatever, like for the last year and a half. And
over cigarettes?
Well, I don't know if it was over just the cigarettes, but like they said that he had like lots of problems, and that he was kind of not a very good inmate or whatever. And that was the other thing that a bunch of us were talking about, was like, even if he is guilty, like, isn't it punishment enough that he's had to worry about this and had to come to trial for a year and a half, Like, stealing a pack of cigarettes is definitely not worth all of that effort. And I'm sure that, that wasn't the reason why we said not guilty, but I was thinking that the whole time, like, is this even worth it to say guilty? But yeah, it was crazy, because the prosecuting attorney and the defense attorneys, they were like just talking, like, like they were all friends and everything. And the other thing was, they asked us, they're like, oh, so did anyone wonder why the victim didn't show up? And we're like, yeah. And she says, that's why we had one of the longest breaks, she said, because she was trying to contact the lady on the phone to get her into the court. And they said that, like, she had quit that job and she was homeless. So the victim, the reason why she didn't come in was she was homeless and she didn't want to come in, and they were kind of, and she and the prosecuting attorney was saying that they kind of, were like on the fence if they even wanted to bring her in, because she wouldn't be a very credible witness. And anyway, just the whole thing was like,